why The Undertaker never went to WCW back during the Monday Night Wars, even when WWE was struggling.
Yeah, it's a question a lot of wrestling fans have asked over the years.
Right. We're going to try to unpack that today.
Yeah.
We've got this article from TJR Wrestling that lays out the whole story.
Sounds fascinating.
So get this. WWE was hurting bad goals. Arenas were practically empty.
Oh, wow.
The Undertaker himself said in interviews he'd come out for his entrance and, barely see any fans.
I can't even imagine.
It was a rough time for the company.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, WCW is, poaching all the big names, throwing around these massive contracts.
Yeah, WCW was really trying to dominate the wrestling scene back then.
Absolutely. And The Undertaker was a huge star, like a main eventer, so obviously they wanted him.
Makes sense. He was a major draw.
Okay, so according to this article, Kevin Nash, who's a big deal in WCW, actually met with The Undertaker.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and basically offered him a ton of money to jump ship.
Wow. I mean, who wouldn't be tempted by that, right?
You'd think so. But here's where it gets interesting. The Undertaker turned them down flat.
Really?
Yeah, and the article says it all comes down to loyalty. This deep loyalty he had towards Vince McMahon.
Huh. So it wasn't just about the money.
Apparently not. See, WCW had basically told him way back when that he'd never be a big star.
Ouch, that's gotta sting.
Right. And then Vince McMahon comes along, takes a chance on him, and turns him into this icon.
I see. So it's like The Undertaker felt indebted to Vince for believing in him when no one else did.
Exactly. It's this classic underdog story, Someone tells you you're worthless, and then someone else sees your potential and helps you become a legend.
Yeah, that kind of loyalty can run deep.
But let's be honest, the wrestling world is notorious for backstabbing and people jumping ship all the time.
That's true. It's a pretty cutthroat business.
So The Undertaker's unwavering loyalty to Vince McMahon, it really stands out.
Absolutely. And this article actually uses a really powerful phrase to describe their relationship. They say it was like crawling in the foxhole together. Yeah, like they were in the trenches together fighting for survival.
That's a powerful image, and it really speaks to the depth of their bond.
It wasn't just about business. It was about something much deeper, a shared struggle and trust.
So they were like comrades in arms battling against the odds. But I'm curious, what did Vince McMahon get out of this loyalty?
Well, think about it. Having someone like The Undertaker stick with you through thick and thin, it sends a powerful message to the entire company, the fans, even your rivals.
Right. It's like a statement of stability and credibility, especially during such a volatile time in the wrestling business.
Exactly. The Undertaker wasn't just a top wrestler. He was a symbol of loyalty in a world known for its betrayals.
And remember those allegations that came out later against Vince McMahon?
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how The Undertaker navigated that, how it impacted his feelings of loyalty.
That's a good point. We see them together at the Super Bowl recently, which suggests their bond remains strong even through those difficult times.
It adds another layer of complexity to this whole story, right?
Absolutely. Was there ever a moment when that loyalty wavered? Did they have tough conversations behind closed doors?
We can only speculate.
It makes you think about the limits of loyalty, how it can be tested and redefined when someone you're close to faces serious accusations.
Yeah, it's not a black and white situation. But getting back to that WCW offer, it wasn't just about the money, was it?
Oh.
This article says the Undertaker also thought about going to Japan to wrestle.
Really?
Yeah, can you imagine the Undertaker in a Japanese wrestling ring?
Whoa, that would be intense.
Right, and the Japanese wrestling style is so different from WWE, much more physical.
That was like a martial art.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So would the Undertaker even have been the Undertaker in Japan? Or would he have had to totally reinvent himself?
It's an interesting question to think about.
And would that have taken away from the mystique he'd built in WWE?
These are all questions he must have grappled with.
It wasn't just about wrestling, it was about his identity, his legacy as the Undertaker.
Would he have been willing to risk all of that for a new adventure?
It's a testament to his dedication to the character he'd created that he ultimately chose to stay true to it.
It really is.
So we've got this fascinating web of factors here. The loyalty to Vince McMahon, the sting of WCW's rejection, the desire to protect his character, the allure and risk of reinventing himself in Japan.
It's a lot to consider.
It paints this picture of a man at a crossroads facing some massive decisions that could have changed his whole career, maybe even wrestling history.
Definitely. It makes you wonder what wrestling would look like today if he'd made a different choice.
Right. Would WCW have dominated? Would The Undertaker have become the legend he is in a different environment?
So many intriguing what-ifs to ponder.
It's like a choose-your-own-adventure story, but in real life with huge stakes.
And for The Undertaker, it seems like loyalty was the deciding factor in the end.
It really does.
That's fascinating.
It's kind of crazy to think WCW just dismissed The Undertaker like he was nothing special.
Yeah, unbelievable, right?
Right.
And then he goes to WWE and becomes this massive star.
Talk about a missed opportunity for WCW. But it's awesome that Vince McMahon saw something in him that others didn't.
It's like a reminder that even when people doubt you, there's always someone out there who might believe in you.
Totally. It's like that classic underdog story, proving everyone wrong.
And it also says a lot about Vince McMahon's willingness to take risks.
Right. He saw potential where other promoters saw nothing.
He gambled on The Undertaker, and it paid off big time.
Oh, yeah, for both of them. This article even calls it a leap of faith for both Vince and The Undertaker.
That created a bond that went way beyond a typical business deal.
They were connected by this shared success story. But let's face it, loyalty in the wrestling world can be pretty fragile.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of backstabbing and shifting alliances. It's part of the drama.
So it's even more remarkable that The Undertaker stayed loyal to Vince McMahon through all the chaos in WWE.
You're right. Even when those allegations against Vince McMahon came out.
The Undertaker didn't abandon ship. They were even spotted together at the Super Bowl recently.
So that foxhole mentality really stuck with them through thick and thin.
But I gotta wonder, was there any backlash from fans or other wrestlers?
For The Undertaker staying loyal to Vince McMahon during those times.
Yeah. Like, did people question his loyalty? Did he have to defend his decision?
It's a question the article doesn't really address.
Yeah, it's like a whole hidden chapter in this story.
It makes you think about the complexities of loyalty.
Sometimes being loyal means standing by someone, even when it's hard, even when you might face criticism for it.
And that's where the personal side of their relationship becomes so important.
We can analyze the business decisions all we want, but this was ultimately about a bond between two men who went through some wild times together.
Exactly. It goes beyond contracts and money. It's about a shared history and a deep connection.
Okay, so we've talked about loyalty, the risks involved, even the potential fallout, but what about the creative side of things?
What do you mean?
Well, this article mentions that The Undertaker was very protective of his character.
Right. He had a very specific vision for The Undertaker.
So do you think staying with WWE gave him more control over how that character was portrayed?
It's definitely possible. I mean, WWE allowed him to develop this iconic persona over decades.
They built storylines that played to his strengths.
Exactly. And going to WCW or Japan might have meant sacrificing some of that creative control.
He might have been forced into storylines that didn't fit his character.
Or even worse, he might have had to change his character completely.
Can you imagine The Undertaker doing some cheesy WCW gimmick?
It's hard to picture, right?
So that creative control was probably a huge factor in his decision to stay with WWE.
It wasn't just about where he wrestled, it was about protecting the legacy of The Undertaker.
He took a calculated risk, but it paid off big time.
He stayed true to himself, stayed loyal to the company that believed in him.
And became one of the most legendary figures in wrestling history. But there's still one piece missing from this puzzle. Right. What was The Undertaker's own perspective on all of this? It's been fascinating digging into all the reasons behind The Undertaker's loyalty to WWE. But we haven't heard it straight from the dead man himself.
Right. It would be great to get his perspective on all of this.
Well, guess what? This article actually has some direct quotes from The Undertaker about why he stuck with WWE.
Oh, wow. I'd love to hear that.
Okay, so he says, and I quote, "I knew that man, Vince McMahon, gave me an opportunity, that other company, WCW, although the leadership and everything had changed by now, to me it was still the same company that told me I would never draw a dime."
Wow. You can really sense that feeling of rejection even after all these years.
Yeah, it's like WCW telling him he'd never make it really fuels his fire.
It became this personal thing for him, not just business.
Exactly. And it highlights how powerful those early experiences can be.
When someone tells you you're not good enough, it can stick with you.
But then you have someone like Vince McMahon who sees your potential when no one else does.
That's got to create a strong bond.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, so check out this next quote. It's about when WCW tried to lure him away with a big money offer.
What did he say?
The article says he was seriously tempted by the money, but deep down, he just couldn't leave WWE.
Interesting.
He says, "The temptation is screwing with me, but I know deep down inside, It's crazy. It's hard to describe. Like, deep down inside of me, I know that I can't because I knew that man gave me an opportunity.
Wow, that's powerful stuff.
I know, right? It's like he was battling with himself.
Between the logical choice and his gut feeling.
Exactly. The logical choice was to take the money, but his gut told him he couldn't abandon Vince McMahon.
It's loyalty at its core. It's about human connection and gratitude.
Forget the contracts, the money, all of that.
Yeah.
This is about repaying a debt that runs deeper than anything else.
It really makes you think about those times when someone took a chance on you.
Yeah, like they saw something in you that you maybe didn't even see in yourself.
And you feel this sense of obligation to prove them right?
So what if The Undertaker had ignored his gut and just gone for the money?
Would he even be the Undertaker, as we know him today?
That's the big question, isn't it?
I kind of doubt it. His whole persona was so connected to WWE.
The storylines, the atmosphere,
That's hard to imagine him reaching those same heights anywhere else.
So in a way, he wasn't just staying loyal to Vince McMahon, he was staying loyal to The Undertaker.
The character he'd worked so hard to create.
It was about protecting that legacy.
And because of that, he became a true icon in wrestling history.
He's proof that loyalty and following your instincts can pay off.
Even when it might not make sense on paper.
What an incredible deep dive this has been. We've explored the ins and outs of The Undertaker's loyalty.
All the motivations, the risks, the rewards.
But at its heart, it's a story about human connection.
The kind of bond that can survive anything.
It's a reminder that even in a crazy world like pro wrestling, there's still room for genuine loyalty and respect.
And those values can lead to some truly amazing stories.
That wraps up our deep dive into The Undertaker's unwavering loyalty to WWE. Thanks for joining us.
It's been a fascinating journey.
See you next time.